These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. Sean, where are we?
We at Fort Governor's private ranch in Eastern Cape of South Africa.
Fort Governor's Estate.
Yeah.
Why is it called Fort Governor's?
Traditionally there were forts on the ridge at the top of our property from the 1800s, and there's still one standing up there, and the one property name is Governor's Kop, so we amalgamated the two.
Yeah.
Came up with Fort Governor's.
Would it have been a British outpost, a Dutch outpost?
British. Yeah.
Yeah. And the nearest town is now called Maconda?
Yeah, Grahamstown, Maconda.
Yeah.
It's like the fourth oldest town in South Africa.
In South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay. So Port Elizabeth, which is not terribly far away, was, a primary port of entry for people coming through this part of the world.
Yeah, it was referred to as Algoa Bay.
Okay.
And because it is a big bay, so it was a very good place to come in, get out of the storms, the Cape storms, crazy in those days, get fresh water.
We've been down here hunting for a few days now, and I'm going to do everything that I can to not talk about the hunting that we've had, because this is going to be a two-part episode. And next week, folks, come on back, and we're going to talk about this hunt, and then we're going to talk about the hunting stories that Sean has experienced throughout his many decades career as a professional hunter and a ranger in Africa. And there's some fantastic stories there. What I really want to talk about right now is this area so that people can understand it a little bit better. And I also want to spend some time breaking down the mythology that is just flat out wrong about Africa and African hunting. So I think we should start with pointing out that Africa is a continent and not a country, and it's pretty darn big, right?
Yeah, it's made up of more than 30 countries.
Yeah.
The total Africa.
And that number changes from time to time, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Fairly fluid in certain parts of it. But like if you try to compare, one of the Saharan countries to where we're at now, they might as well be on different planets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The easiest and the best way to think about it, if you had to bring something from the Sahara or Sahara area down to us, it'd probably only survive about 14 days. Just because this is...
As far as an animal goes.
Animal, yeah. Not person-wise. It's just so different climate, insects, just the diseases that you get here. You have to be born here to survive here.
Yeah.
So you can definitely go from here to there. It's much like water. If you come from an area where the water is very salty and you're used to drinking salty water, your body is used to that. But if you're used to drinking sweet water and you go and drink salty water all of a sudden, it's very bad for the system. With animals, I mean. I'm not talking about people.
Yeah.
So it's very similar to that. You have to acclimatize slowly.
And if you were to try to, say, drive to Egypt from here, what would that take? 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, it'd probably take you close on a month because you have to go all the border posts. You don't know what's going to happen there and how long you're going to get stopped there.
Right.
But distance-wise and breakdowns.
Yeah.
And when you go through like Central Africa, you might hit the rainy season and then the roads are washed out. So I'd say a month to be safe.
Yeah. Just to give people a little bit of an idea for scale, because if you look at a map, you look at a globe, it's just hard to understand.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand how big this thing is.
Yeah.
On my route here, the last big leg of it was from Amsterdam to Johannesburg. And we're a good bit farther south than Johannesburg now. But most of that 11-hour flight is over Africa.
Yeah.
Like you get out of Europe pretty quick, and then it's just like Africa for hours
Africa.
and hours and hours and hours of flight. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So beautiful. This property here is incredibly beautiful, and much more so than I was expecting, both in terms of terrain and vegetation. You've had some rain here, so there's a lot of bloom going on. Beautiful flowers all over the place, and interesting topography. There's big valleys. There's old cinder cone volcano cores sticking up out of the ground. There's cliffs. There's rolling foothills and old eroded mountain peaks. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, we go from 200 meters above sea level and to 900 and something, the highest point.
Yeah.
So, and we go from super dense bush where you can't walk through that are full of either what it's called speckworm, which directly translates to bacon bush. It's like the greenest plant. Everybody trying to do the CO2 thing, that they're planting the speckworm. So you've got that very high in vitamins and everything, to trees that are just riddled in thorns and you can't get through them.
And I've been eating the leaves off the speckworm like crazy.
Yeah.
I kind of want to try and make a pie out of it. I think I could make
Makes a good smoothie.
I think I could make a version of an apple pie with it.
You probably could. I didn't think of that.
It tastes like Granny Smith apples.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so there's an interesting interface on this place between wildlife management and domestic livestock management. Tell me what you're doing with the goats.
Okay, so to put it in context, this place is over around 30,000 acres, over 10,000 hectares. And it's when you have a vast property like that, it takes a lot of time. And before we got here, it was left a bit. And many moons ago, they brought out a tree called a wattle tree from Australia. And it follows the water courses and it establishes very fast. It grows 3 meters is probably about 16 feet, I think.
Yeah.
In about 2-3 years.
It looks a bit like a cedar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nothing eats it. Not even an elephant eats it. So I did a lot of research into how we could control it, because it takes over your property and it takes away all your water. So we first started cutting timber, and we used to truck the timber to Pietermaritzburg, where they would then pulp it and then send it off to make paper. That did okay, but then the timber got too thin, too small, so it wasn't viable. And then we started cutting the smaller trees and started a charcoal plant. And that was all job creation.
Okay.
So it was not financial gain out of any way for us. It was to get rid of the wattle and job creation. And then the regrowth is...
Did it pay for itself?
It paid for itself, yeah.
That's a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're dealing with an invasive species like that. If you can turn it into a useful product that pays for itself, that's better than most, right?
Absolutely.
Because most of the time, it's a giant cost to try to get rid of it. And even if you are turning it into a useful byproduct, you're still losing at some point. So that was a big deal.
Very big deal. And it'll get you down because it regrows so quickly.
Yeah.
An old chap once told me, he said, getting rid of wattle is like eating an elephant. You just take it one bite at a time. If you let it get to you, it's going to wipe you out.
Yeah.
And I took that stance. Then we cut a lot, and the regrowth was driving me mad. And I didn't want to use chemicals. So I did a lot of research into what animal I can control, not in control, but I could manage, and which animal can digest the most tannin. So then I came up with goats. And I researched how I can stop tannin poisoning, because that's a real thing. Mm-hmm. If they eat too much tannin, they can't digest it. And so I found products that will just break down the tannin a bit. And then what I did is we'd clear the wattle, and then we'd have fires through here, which is normal. We'd also have controlled fires to germinate the wattle, because they're stimulated by fire.
Okay.
A lot of people would say, once you've cleared the wattle, make sure you never get a fire. But you can't do that, because the seeds will live like 30 years.
Sure. And
I'm not there to make it my kid's problem. This is my thing to sort out. So I would intentionally burn an area. Burning the wattle seeds, you probably destroy 60%.
Okay.
But you'd stimulate all the wattle seeds, and they would come up like hair on a dog's back, is what everybody says.
Yeah. And
that's no lie. It would look like a pink carpet as the seeds come out. And then we'd herd the goats there. And the goats would literally be on their knees. You just see like a pink carpet, and the goats would be on their knees like you see a pig eating. And they would just pull out every single tree. And The only tree, the little wattle trees that they didn't pull out was something that was obscured by a little branch or something like that. And they would literally clean an area up. And you can see it in the valleys where I started and I didn't have goats. The regrowth I'm going to have to redo. And then where we've cleared and we did have goats. We had big numbers because it's a big area. At one stage we were just under 1,200 goats. But the management is a bit tricky because of the ticks, and goats are susceptible to foot rot, and they don't like too much moisture, which not normally a problem for us here, but we've been very grateful we've had rain, like you said, last 2 years.
So tell me a little bit more about how the goats can help with the ticks.
Yeah, so what we do is the goats are a big herd of goats. We crawl them at night for buffalo and for leopard because we've got lots of buffalo here and we have leopard.
What did the buffalo mess with the goats?
Yeah, they've killed them before.
Did the Cape buffalo kill the goats?
Yeah, I killed. One morning I was taking the kids to school and we found 4 dead goats. I was like, what's going on here?
Huh.
And they were just wrecked, and looked across and there's a big old buffalo bull just lying there with shiny horns. They're just grumpy, and the goats didn't know any better and they got too close. And he just sorted them out.
And this buffalo skull that's on the wall here, folks, you can't see it. It's a massive bull buffalo, and he's really, really beautiful. Big, hard bosses, sweeping horns, tips are intact. Like he's everybody's dream buffalo. And that bull killed one of your horses.
Yeah, he killed my horse. Yeah.
What a jerk.
It's just they communicate different, you know. So a horse communicates with its ears, and the buffalo doesn't communicate. It shakes its head, and it isn't a dry time here, and it must have been at like a water source or food source, because I used to use the horses a lot to ride in and get closer to the game and see how the game are doing, and also just to clear your mind. And so I let the horses go on our property, and to get used to the game, especially giraffe. You know, when a horse sees a giraffe, it freaks out completely.
Sure.
If it doesn't know.
It's like a giant llama.
Yeah, it's like it's a pterodactyl thing coming. And then the horse bumped into the wrong buffalo, which was this chap.
Yeah.
And we got him the next year.
Yeah.
There's a whole story behind him.
Sure.
Yeah, but so going back to the ticks and the goats, so what we do is we herd the goats into a corral, I think you guys call it.
Yep.
And we pressure sleep them in a certain area, and we normally choose an area that's very like eroded or derelict and stuff. So the goat manure and urine and the foot action stimulates the soil, and then we'll spread an indigenous grass seed there, and then that will germinate just to improve where there's been erosion or where we've had the wattle and stuff. And then while the goats are walking, they spread out and they cover quite a nice big area. And the ticks will get onto them, like they'll get onto the game. Mm-hmm. And in that way, we would dip every Tuesday. And we've seen a considerable reduction in the ticks with that and fire.
Dip is like a chemical treatment for the goats to get the ticks off of them.
Yeah, it's a contact treatment, and it only lasts about a day on the fur.
Okay. So the way I'm understanding this is that instead of the ticks getting on your wildlife, they're getting on the goats, and then because you can move the goats around, you can kill those ticks, thus by reducing the tick population.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, at one stage it was, the ticks here were quite bad. You'd walk, we get something that's called a pepper tick. It's about the size of a pinhead. And if you hit a nest of pepper ticks, there'll probably be 1,000 in there. It looks like half a matchbox.
Yeah.
And then that matchbox starts moving on your leg. You can't get to a can of insect repellent quick enough.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's straight up to all the itchy spots, and
they
itch like crazy. And we've seen a huge reduction in that. So it's just made our game a lot healthier. You know, eland are susceptible to ticks. Mm-hmm. Impala, springbok are susceptible to ticks, as well as oryx or gemsbok.
And the blesbok too.
Yeah. You see when they get older, then the ticks their immune system will go down, and then you'll see them like that old ram that you shot.
Yeah.
So we've seen with the goats, with herding the goats like that, we've controlled the wattle, and we have an impact on the ticks. The other guys have other ways of doing it, and I've tried all the other ways, and this is probably the best way.
If you can get a biocontrol to work, it's the best. For any kind of thing. But some of the biocontrols are a little bit ineffective. like biochar, for example, that was billed as like this wonderful thing for moisture and soil health and all this stuff. And the biochar experiments that I've been a part of really didn't work out very well. But there's an aphid that will turn loose sometimes for some of our weeds, and it will go around and it'll actually destroy the weeds at the roots. Knapweed is one that we deal with a lot, and that biocontrol works awesome because there's these aphids turn into millions and billions, and they're doing the type of work that we could never do without leaving a chemical residue in the soil.
It's exactly that. So we have a wasp here that attacks the seed of the wattle and makes it infertile. So we had that already, but we had an established forest of over 3,000 hectares, which is about 6,500 acres.
Yeah.
Of just wattle, and so with the cutting, the wasp, everything like that, the goats eating the regrowth. I didn't want to go and put on hundreds and hundreds of pounds or kilograms or tons of chemicals that go into the soil, and you don't actually know where it's going to end up. So that was the goats are our bio way of doing it. It might not look 100% when you're on safari and you see goats, but if you know what they're doing and what their contribution, then I think a lot of people will accept it.
I think it's important, and accept or not, goats have been part of Africa for a very, very long time.
Yeah, their currency.
Yeah. And even like we were talking about earlier today, for some of the local folks, that currency could be used to buy a wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
La bola.
Do you have any idea, say a gal's got some education, she's sharp, good looking. How many goats are we talking?
I don't know. That's all in the negotiations. So the husband will have to go and negotiate with the father.
Okay.
And then they'll discuss if she's been to school, she's good looking, if she can read and write.
Yeah.
And they pay a couple of hundred cows.
Couple hundred cows.
Yeah, for some ladies.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Interesting.
Maybe an old donkey if you went. Not the nice daughter, I don't know.
And I think a lot of people are going to hear this and think it's just the most disastrous thing in the world. It's a different culture. It's a different culture in a different place, and it's a way things have been done for a long time. And, who am I to say?
No, exactly. So a lot of people think you can come to South Africa or Africa in general and try and change a culture. You can't. It's what people believe in. Their superstitions, and nobody's here to change anything. You got to live with it.
Yeah.
Adopt it. And
something that we've heard a lot about in the States, a little bit more recently even, is attacks on white farmers in South Africa. What we hear is very bad. What is the reality? What's going on there?
No, the reality is it is bad. Farmers are targeted because we are remote. And a very strange law in our country is you can't really protect yourself. If somebody comes with a knife, you're only supposed to retaliate with a knife type story. If somebody comes with a gun, you're allowed to pull a gun. You can't shoot somebody in their back and stuff like that. But the reality is it is more dangerous to be a white farmer, statistically, than it is to be a policeman.
So how do you feel about that? Because we're in a remote area. You've got your family here. You've got young kids. Is there any fear involved in that?
I think we're all aware. It's like living in the city anyway. I think you've got to be aware of your surroundings. But I wouldn't be able to change my lifestyle because of fear. I'm aware. I'm vigilant. But the best way to take it, you take it back to nature. If you look at an impala and the leopards walk past, the impala on their guard and they check it all out, and then the danger is gone, and then they settle down. If you're going to be tightly wound about everything, I think you won't be able to enjoy it much. I think South Africans in general, we're quite resilient because all of us South Africans, doesn't matter if you're yellow, green, purple, blue, we deal with like strange weather, from super hot to floods. We have rolling power outages that you have to adapt with. and you're still trying to run your business, and you're still trying to put your kids through school. So I find that South Africans generally smile about, if you fall off your bike, you check, is your friend okay? And then you'll have a good laugh about it. I find that we generally like that.
Yeah.
We're not scared to get stuck in, don't get me wrong, but we also don't run in gung-ho
Right.
and be silly about stuff. I don't know if that answers it correctly.
It does. The stories I hear, though, I mean, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, burning people alive and torturing them. And a lot of times it's elderly people on these farms. Is this coordinated? It doesn't feel, it feels like a movement. It doesn't feel like random acts.
It can't be random because it's very violent. They have signal blockers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you can't phone out. They have getaways. They have assistance. For somebody to come in and get out, it's a lot of them are coordinated. You might have the odd one where it's just a little dispute of some sort. But the violentness behind it, if you're going to rob a house, you're going to tie somebody up and rob the house. You're not going to pull acid down their throat, rape them, beat them, cut them.
Yeah.
The thing is with going to that, it's a dark side of South Africa. But I don't think there's one South African farmer that doesn't have a friend or a family member that hasn't been attacked.
Really?
That's how bad it is.
What kind of help do you need from the U.S. to try to get this to stop, or is it something that the U.S. should even be involved in, or is this a problem that South Africa needs to figure out on their own, or do you guys need help?
Look, we've tried to raise the awareness about it, and it just falls on deaf ears. In the investigations, we've tried to get it to become like a really severe criminal offence if you are involved in a farm attack, because it doesn't only affect the landowner, it affects everybody on the property. A landowner gets killed, people lose their jobs, they lose their livelihood and stuff like that. If the law got followed and the investigations got followed and people were getting put in jail, then you could sort it out in South Africa.
Yeah.
But there's a blind eye being turned to it. There's hate speech being spewed all over the television, national televisions, and nothing happens about it. You can open a case and that just gets thrown out where they're singing, kill the farmer, kill the boer, on national radio, national TV, and that's not declared hate speech. Then what is?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Well, that's a tragedy. I hate that it's anything that you have to deal with. I hope it gets figured out. Okay, moving on.
Lighter subject.
Something else that people don't understand is high fence hunting. And that is what we're doing here. There is a fence around this property. I want to get into the laws about fencing, because I think that people don't understand that at all. I certainly didn't. But I also want to talk about reality. So hunting this bush game, for example, that we've been hunting for the past few days.
Yeah.
I've yet to see a single animal that is more than 3 steps away from vanishing.
Yeah.
Into brush that is impenetrably thick by vision.
Yeah.
So all they have to do is take 3 steps, and they are no longer accessible to my eyes or a bullet or anything else that I can bring to bear. So the idea that because there's a fence around 30,000 acres that the animals can't get away is asinine.
Yeah.
Furthermore, everywhere I go along the fence, I find places where animals are going through it. Yeah. And that's the reality of fencing. I know it is a huge task to keep fence up. I've fought this battle my entire life for cattle. I get it. What are the laws around fencing?
So there are only 2 places that you can own the game. It's South Africa and Namibia. Other than that, all the game belongs, like America, it belongs to the state and all the other countries, and you have to get a tag and everything like that. So what has happened in the past is Say my buffalo get onto the highway and gets hit by a truck. I'm responsible. So I can.
How do they know it was your buffalo?
Well, they have to prove it, which is one of the things. But if a buffalo gets out, say to the south here, I'm the closest guy with buffalo.
Sure.
Here. So I'm going to be the first one that they're going to check.
Yeah.
And then they're going to look for somebody to blame. So if you have lion and your lion gets out and kills somebody's goats or sheep or even a person, then you've got huge drama. So we have these vast pieces of land and we're trying to conserve nature and keep it as wild as possible. Mm-hmm. But you need to keep nature safe from people as well.
Yep. So
we have to have fences. We have to have fences, firstly, so that you can hunt.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can only hunt 2 months of the year.
Okay.
You also have to have the fences so that you can manage your game the way you see fit. You know, there's no point me having 30,000 acres and I have a neighbor who's got 500 acres and he's as trigger happy as 10 and he's just shooting anything that comes around because he doesn't care about next month or next year or the next 30 years or my kids, you know. So then you can manage and you can see, okay, my game numbers are really doing well. Like here, where you see in a day, you probably see, 200-300 animals. Mm-hmm. So you can check your population and you can have an idea on what's happening. The fence is also only just a guideline really for your property and for the game. As you've seen, warthogs go under the fence, nyala creep, gemsbuck. If a gemsbuck's head can fit through, or oryx, he's gone.
Yeah.
Bushbuck, they creep or jump. Kudu jump through a fence or over. Leopard, there's no fence.
Forget about it.
Yeah. No. And then an elephant, if there's you need electric on the fence to keep an elephant or rhino or hippo to keep them in tow.
And then keeping electric fence up in country that grows brush as quickly as this, massive challenge.
Massive challenge. You have permanent fence crew checking to make sure that your game is safe because, again, you've got to think about poaching.
Sure.
So you got guys sneaking in with dogs for meat poaching, and some people might think, oh, shame, they're hungry. It's not all about the hunger. That meat, they come in and they might eat some of that meat, but that meat gets sold and other stuff are bought with it. Or they come in and rhino poach or something like that. So you've just got to keep your nature safe. 40 years ago, nature could run itself, I think, or maybe a bit longer. 50 years ago, nature could do its own thing. But there's not much space anymore. So you've got to make a animal zone and a people-free zone. And if you don't have a high fence, people just do what they like. And you don't want the game to go running down the highway, hit a truck or hit a family or something like that. And then you've got that firstly on your conscience and secondly in your lawsuit. So you have to look after that. If it's something like in America where a white-tailed deer runs across the road and then gets hit by a car, that's state game, state problem.
Yeah, except the state doesn't take any responsibility.
No, they
for
won't.
It. Yeah.
No, they won't.
Yeah. We're working on my ranch and in the surrounding area on some wildlife crossings over the highways because we're killing huge numbers of deer.
Yeah.
With vehicle strikes every year. And there's a lot of tourist traffic in the summertime. And then there's just commuters, people driving around. But massive, massive numbers of deer. What I would like to see is for some of the insurance companies to chip in to help pay for these wildlife passes so that they're not having to pay out for all the damage to vehicles. Mm-hmm. I think that would probably pencil out. If not, just for the sake of the health of the wildlife. But,
we're starting that here now as well between reserves.
Yeah. In my estimation, there's 2 models for wildlife conservation in the world that are working very well. One is the North American model for wildlife conservation, which at its core means that the wildlife is owned by the public, managed by the state. The funding for that management comes from licensed sales for hunting and from excise tax from shooting. And it works great. Yeah. For the last 120 years, it's worked really well in the U.S. We've brought lots of species back, from very low levels. We've got very healthy populations of basically every animal that we hunt. There's some that are struggling, and the hunters are the ones who are saying, hey, we need some help. Like, these animals aren't doing well, much more so than any other interested group. So the North American model is a fantastic model. It works great. The South African model is also tremendous because you are the keepers of the greatest number of megafauna in Africa.
Yeah.
And you're doing a splendid job of it. The diversity of megafauna here is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
It's impossible to understand for somebody like me who's not from here.
Yeah, we got like 40 species roaming free here.
40 species.
40, yeah. And I'm not counting little mice and stuff like that.
Yeah. How many game species?
Wow. If you want to include everything,
Yeah.
you're gonna be close to 60.
Close to 60
different game species
on this property.
Yeah, but I'm talking now from a rodent all the way up.
Yeah.
Game like from blue duiker, gracebuck, which is like blue duiker is the size of a cat. Gracebuck's a little bit bigger than that, probably the size of a cocker spaniel. All the way up to giraffe, buffalo, leopard. We've got leopard here, brown hyena, honey badgers, oribi. A lot of these animals weren't here.
Yeah.
In the farming days, you've got to think about it. You've got predators that cause a lot of damage, and everybody needs to put their kids through school. Everybody needs to pay for their fuel to run stuff. So you couldn't afford to have losses. So people use chemicals like poison. So what we've done here is we've helped all our neighbors by, I run a pack of dogs that are trained to only chase jackal and only chase caracal.
Okay.
Caracal is like a lynx, like a mountain lion. It looks like a mountain lion, but it's the size of a bobcat. But they can catch up to something that's 4 times their size. Like a jackal will catch a half-grown kudu calf.
Right.
And they can cause some proper damage. Like a full-grown sheep's got no chance. A caracal will catch that. Jackal will catch that, no problem. And so what we did is to try and increase the population of indigenous game here. We've had our dogs running for close on 6 years. And first we cleaned up our place and we showed our neighbors this is what we're doing. And then we went to our neighbors of different property sizes. Some guys are weekend farmers, which means they live there but they work in town. And they're like hobby farmers, if I can call it that. Other guys are farming full time. And we would take our dogs and charge them nothing. And dogs cost a lot to run.
Yeah, they do.
They're eating every day. They've got vet bills. They get injuries. Takes 2 years to train them. You need GPS collars in case something happens and you get blamed or accused of doing something. I just whip the GPS out and say, guys, my dogs are here.
Yeah.
They were doing this speed. They're not even in the area you're talking about or something like that. And it's really been received quite well with most neighbors. Of course, there's always 1 or 2 guys that don't want to have a dog around or they don't fully understand the benefits of it. But what's happened is the neighbors have stopped putting poison out. And now you magnify my 30,000 acres, or our 30,000 acres, you magnify that by 2. And that's the bubble of no poison we have around us. We've got honey badgers coming back. There's a farmer down here, I think he's 4th generation or something. And he hadn't seen a honey badger ever in his life.
Wow.
And he is, I'd say he's close to 60.
Wow.
And he saw honey badger for the first time.
How good is that?
How cool is that?
Yeah.
And I just said, oh, and he had to survive. So he had to put poison out because he had neighbors that didn't pay attention to the jackal. And jackal are like coyotes. If they mob up and they can get big, they can even kill a cow calf.
Yeah.
And often when a cow is giving birth, they'll start eating the cow while she's giving birth and she doesn't even know. And the next thing, they've caused so much damage, you lose the calf and the cow.
Right.
That's huge damage.
Yep.
So with the way that we were doing that, that's really taken off. And the guys have stopped putting poison out. They're talking about, oribi moved back here because jackal and caracal are very heavy on oribi and gracebuck. Oribi have moved back out of their own. I phoned a guy that grew up right in the same house down here. He lives down not too far from here, and I said to him, "Look here, we got Oribi." He said he hasn't seen Oribi here in 40 years. He's also in his 60s.
Incredible.
Yeah. And now I said, well, they moved back here because they're less predator pressure. You don't want to get rid of all the jackal or all the caracal.
You've still got caracal. You've still got jackal. Yeah.
Everybody has a place in nature, but you can't have them out of hand. So it's a word probably people throw around a lot, but you're like a custodian. You're just keeping an eye on stuff and keeping it balanced. And it's just been amazing. Gracebuck, we're seeing them a lot. Mountain reedbuck, you haven't seen one yet. It's like a light brown, lives in the grassy ridges. They're doing very well. So just by having the dogs and it's a predator, but I'm controlling the predator with dog pellets and a little bit of protein and so on. It's pushing the other predators away, and it's letting the general fauna and flora increase and flourish. That's been a big thing for us.
People throw out this tagline that hunting is conservation all the time. And honestly, it drives me crazy. And I kind of don't like the word conservation because everyone uses it, right? That, hunters use it and they say what they're doing is conservation. And then people who are vehemently anti-hunting will say, well, what we're doing by preventing hunting is conservation. So if both sides use the word differently, then eventually the word means nothing.
Yeah.
And the folks that throw out hunting as conservation say, well, what do you mean by that? And they're like, hunting provides money for research and for science. Like, okay, money can come from anywhere. It doesn't. It comes from hunting. But this is a perfect example of how hunting actually conserves these other species while maintaining the predators which are critical for a healthy habitat. Like ecological balance isn't something that you can achieve. It's something that you're always striving for.
Exactly, and you have to have diversity.
Yes.
Without diversity, sorry, my dogs are misbehaving.
You know what? I love your dogs so much, and it's okay if a dog barks every once in a while. They're supposed to do that.
Yeah, they just woke it up.
Yeah.
So the diversity. Without diversity, you need diversity to make sure that everything's balanced.
Yeah.
With diversity, you got balance. And that's what we found. If you've got too many blesbuck, they're grass eaters.
Yep.
You're going to have very, very little grass, and that's going to affect. Or you can go to straight to elephant, which is a contentious subject.
We're going to get into it.
Yeah. Okay. So if you have too many of one, and it doesn't balance out. You're going to have they're going to be very little bit grass, and then you're going to have the bush encroaching and something like that. But going back to you saying hunting and conservation, if something doesn't have a value, nobody's going to look after it. It's not in their best interest.
Well, and if instead of a value it has a cost, then that changes it radically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what happened if we can mention two animals? We can go mountain zebra. We I think there were less than 1,000 at one stage. Well, even less than that. I can't quote the numbers because I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
And Bontebok. Bontebok is almost like a blesbuck, but the colors are more striking, and it's got a big white bum. And they were almost extinct. And what happened was people saw the value in them and kept them, but they were allowed to utilize that value. So you would spend a lot of money, because it's not a joke to have them around. They eat grass, they do all their different things. But then what would happen was you could recover some of your costs by hunting or by selling them to another reserve when the numbers got bigger and bigger. What happens then is they will say, listen, you may not shoot mountain zebra, or you can shoot it, but you can't export it, or you can't shoot Bontebok at all. So then I've got school kids, petrol, or electricity. We all need to sort out. There's no point, because your property is only so big. You can only have so many animals on it, and if you can't utilize that and you can't pay your costs, then there's no point. Then you're going to put something else in, be it a cow, be it a sheep. We've seen that in Africa.
Yeah.
And then you're losing species. There's been huge extinctions happening just because they've stopped hunting or stopped the import of a trophy. Now, people carry on about a trophy being this or being that or horns or that. The trophy is a memory. It doesn't have to be the biggest, baddest lion, well, I say lion now, buffalo, warthog, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be the biggest. It's something that reminds you of your trip. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you're hunting, pulling the trigger is 30 seconds. It's a huge amount that happens before that and a huge amount that happens after that. And there's a lot of camaraderie, banter. And this is where we come from. We are omnivores. We've got canines. So we're made for being outside. We're made for using your wit to outwit something else. And also just taking in the fresh air and the outdoor life. You know, you need it. People crave it. If you don't see the sun, you get depressed. If you enclosed most people, if you're enclosed in a building or in cities for too long, you feel like you're pressurized. You need to escape. So it's just nature for us to be in nature.
Well, between me and the cheatgrass cowboy over there, we've put a lot of meat in the cooler on this trip already.
Yeah, you have done well.
How many times have you heard either of us ask what something scored or how many inches it was?
Never.
Not once.
No.
And you're not gonna.
No.
Right? Because that just doesn't, those quantifiers don't change the experience.
No, absolutely not.
For the better. They can change it for the worse, I think.
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right that, you know, it is all about the experience, and the experience is tremendous. We'll get into more of that hunting stuff later. Yeah. I want to talk about elephants a little bit. This is an animal that is constantly coming up, and you know, we continue to hear save the elephants. There's an idea that elephants are on their last leg, that they're just being poached to extinction, that they don't cause any damage. What's the reality with elephants?
Okay, so I'm not a specialist in elephants, but I was a senior guide. I've been in this industry for, north of 25 years.
Yeah.
And the elephant is designed to open the bush. That's its job. That's what it's designed for. It's to make grasslands. So how nature works is, let's take man out the picture. You'll have a drought. The animals have to move to a new area, and then they will leave this area where they've been. Vegetation will get a chance to recover. The trees get a rest, the grass gets a rest, and everything goes back to normal. And then it's a cycle. Okay, the world is only as big as the world is. So unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, we haven't got more space. So you have to manage the area that you have. What man has done is, because we are inherently sympathetic, I think, we see an elephant, and an elephant dying of hunger is a horrible thing. It takes months, 2-3 months to starve. Water is much quicker. But what would happen is we'd have a drought, and then the elephant would start dying. So people would say, okay, we need to put in watering holes. And also, with a watering hole, the elephants always had a place to go. So, and they can't migrate because the areas have got smaller.
Right.
We've got borders that they weren't allowed to cross because there were incidents, or there's been conflict or something of that sort. So keeping that all in mind, you have to keep the numbers in check, because if your job is to open the trees and you're not moving away to a new area, you're going to open trees in the same area all the time. So when an elephant pushes down a tree, or all the trees, if you go up north and you go and see where the elephant numbers are 20, 30,000 too many. 20, 30,000 elephant, that's a huge amount of elephant. They eat 10% of their body weight, but that's what they eat. That's not what they push over. They push a tree over, they eat 2 or 3 branches because they're designed to open.
And they're pushing over trees that are hundreds of years old sometimes. Massive trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not only that tree's affected, everything around the tree is affected. The bird that nests in the tree, the insects that lived on the tree, the birds that ate the fruit, then the grass, because the tree held the soil together. So now there's wind erosion, there's soil erosion. So the knock-on effect is quantified all the way down. So yes, you have lots of elephant. People don't realize everything else that's taking a beating down the line. So you have to realize there is a capacity, what your elephant numbers can be, and when it reaches that, you have to make the hard decisions. We've tried everything. People have tried contraceptives, like sterilizing with chemical sterilization.
Yep.
The only thing they haven't tried in the elephant is a condom, but I'm not going to be putting that in. Other than that, they've tried everything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work. It's just because if you're going to be darting 30,000 elephant with hormones, one elephant reacts badly, and a game viewer comes past with a lovely family on, and that elephant's in a bad mood because you've messed around with the hormones, then it's got a different effect again. You know?
Sure. That's not a long-term solution either.
No, you
that's
can't.
Crazy.
No.
So, okay, if I'm understanding this correctly, because we've made more water available for elephants, and water was previously the limiting factor on how big the elephant population could get, then we can artificially boost the number of elephant that are around, and then they eat too much and destroy habitat. This isn't a good thing for the elephant either, right? It's bad for the entire population to be that high. And, what's the next thing that's going to reduce their population is probably a catastrophic drop in the population.
Yeah, so if you look at, like, I always refer to other animals. Like if you look at the duiker, those small grey duiker.
Yeah.
What we find is the grey duiker, the numbers will just climb and rocket. And then you'd see everywhere you go, you just see grey duiker, grey duiker, grey duiker, everywhere you go. And then all of a sudden, like, they're gone. And then they've got some sort of disease, and then you don't see a duiker for a year or 2 years or 3 years. And they get wiped out, they get decimated, and then all of a sudden they seem to bounce back. So you don't want it to ever get to that. You want to try and keep a balance, and with the elephant numbers and stuff like that. But that's talking about mammals. They recover quickly. You're not talking about the trees and the hundreds and hundreds of years of trees. That won't recover quickly. That's the vegetation. That's going to take 2-3 generations. And that's not even talking about droughts and stuff. That's just if it was pristine rain and everything like that. That vegetation, I've seen farms, ranches, it's cattle or goat farms that have been overutilized. Take 30, 40 years before you even see a difference. And that's not like those trees, 200 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's all. That recovery assumes that there is a massive reduction in the elephant population, which at this point is either going to come from mass starvation or from increase in hunting. Or am I missing something?
No, or they could cull them. But why cull them?
Right.
You don't get. Yes, you get the meat, but you get the meat in any case. And the elephant meat is they make it in tinned food and stews and tinned stews, and that's a cheap, sustainable food source for the population.
Right.
So, yes, you can go and cull them. I understand that, but you could also make it available to hunters that will shoot the elephant for X amount of money. That goes into nature conservation, that goes into protecting the elephants, that goes into rehabilitation of the vegetation, all that. And then you still have the meat. So for me, you get more value if you hunt, because you're moving money around, number one. So that keeps everything, all the pots boiling. But you are contributing in a positive way in more than one way. None of the meat gets wasted. A lot of people think that when you're hunting, you just you take a skin, you leave the meat in the bush. It doesn't work like that. We use it in the lodges. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into that. So that's another thing that's misunderstood. And while it's true that I am not legally able to bring any of this meat back to the United States,
No, you can't.
and I cannot eat all of the meat.
We can try, but
We can try. Going to be here a minute. So where does this meat end up?
yeah, so we the meat that we have here, we use in our lodge. You guys have eaten some parts of everything that we've hunted,
which is phenomenal.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's like a day after
Yeah.
that we are using choice pieces. My staff eat some of the meat. We have there's a boxing club that I donate some meat to. There's an old age home that we donate some meat to. There's another school that we donate some meat to. There's an orphanage that we donate meat to. And I do sell some of the meat.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that gets wasted. We use the parts of the meat that can't be used or not for human use. We use for the dogs. We make a broth for the bones and the calcium. So there's literally nothing that gets wasted.
Which is incredibly true. You guys are doing a phenomenal job down there.
Oh, thank you.
Of getting every scrap that you can off of it. Your skinners are doing a tremendous job. One of them is an obvious favorite of mine, right? Little Rosie, little tiny blonde girl's down there skinning with the best of them. She's very precise. She's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gave her one of my favorite skinning knives today, and she was so happy that
she's beaming.
Warmed my heart. But yeah, it's super cool, and you are really using parts of these animals that I know of no one in North America who's using. The first animal that we gutted there, I was watching your guys and I was like, I'm not sure what's happening. And pretty soon, he just kind of pulls out the stomach contents, doesn't go past the diaphragm. I'm like, yo, dude, you're like halfway done right now. And I said, why are you keeping the lungs in there? And you said that it's because your staff and your dogs eat the lungs.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody use lungs in North America. Didn't even know you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good to make it like a broth for the dogs.
Yeah.
And the heart is if you cook a heart, it's almost like a fillet.
I love heart.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces of meat.
And kidneys and livers is really good. We have a chap down the way. He's got some blood disease and he needs a lot of iron.
Yeah.
And he takes livers like you won't believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been shooting a Gunworks 6.5 PRC that Matt brought.
Sure.
And that has not been a good thing for us being able to eat heart on this trip. That's been a bit problematic.
It is a cracking weapon.
Yeah, that's where these bullets are ending up, which is pretty great. Okay, I want to talk about leopard a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hunt leopard in South Africa.
Yeah, in Eastern Cape, definitely not.
In Eastern Cape.
Yeah,
okay.
in Limpopo and up there you can.
Okay.
You can get a permit. You are allowed to get a permit if it's a problem animal, so it's killing your livestock. But game doesn't count as livestock because it's endangered game, and I can understand that.
Sure.
And then in Namibia and Botswana and stuff, you can hunt them. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you had problems with leopards?
Yeah. Well, catching game, that's just part of their life. I have no issue with that. I've lost a few dogs to leopard, where the dogs have bumped into a leopard and the leopard sorted them out.
In the bush or around your house here?
No, in the bush while we were walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't generally come here. We're looking out the lodge window now, and on this little hill here we saw a leopard once.
Yeah.
But they're generally secretive type thing, unless they get old. When they get old and their teeth get a bit blunt, then everything's fair game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And you also unfortunately lost a dog to a baboon.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. I hate that.
No, I'm not a fan of baboons.
Yeah.
No, they got canines as long as a lion, and they're strong as about 4 men. They get about a big one will be about 60 kilos, so that's 60 to 80 kilos. Like a really big one will be 80 kilos. Not quite, but what's that? That's 160 pounds.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, they can be tricky. They'll come anywhere. They'll test. They cause so much damage for us. Yeah. We have solar. We off with the grid, so we have solar for lights and all that. And they'll come on. They'll break the solar panels. They'll pull the cables out and short the systems out. No, they've just caused a lot of drama. Yeah, the baboons had come here to the lodge, and one of my older dogs, she chased them away, and they circled her and bit her on her jugular. Since that day, I've seen what baboons do. Now people have mixed feelings about baboons, but they also have a dark side. You know, they'll catch baby impala, and then the first thing they do is they rip the stomach open and drink the milk, or they start eating them from the back while they're still alive, or they catch flamingos and other type of birds. They raid birds' nests and stuff like that. So again, you got to have them because they spread seeds and so on, but you got to have a balanced population. When they get out of hand, then you won't see birds, because there's nowhere a bird can make a nest that a baboon or a monkey can't get to. So the ground birds like guinea fowl, francolin, and all those type of things, and the chicks, they'll eat the chicks as well. So yeah, you have to bear. Yeah, but I'm not a fan of a baboon.
Yeah, I get real John Wick real fast thinking about a baboon killing your dog. That's it's unacceptable. There's plenty of places for them to be doing their thing, and that ain't it. But I also understand that it's just an animal being what it is. Yeah, and it's a toothy world out there.
Yeah, no. Look, baboons are. If you think about baboons, leopard catch baboons.
Yeah,
but 3 baboons will see a leopard off.
What's another myth that you would like to bust about game management or hunting in South Africa? Misconception, anything like that?
Yeah, that's a good one. The misconception is that people that hunt don't care about animals. That's probably the furthest thing from the truth, because how many hours do we spend out here? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, that we just gung-ho, we want to shoot and kill everything and we don't care. That's probably the furthest thing from the truth. We spend a lot of time, days, nights, out there checking, making sure everything is fine and making sure everything's ticking, you know. And we probably only harvest 3% of what's happening, if that.
Yeah.
And we're normally taking out the old and the sick.
Yeah.
You can ask my kids now. Which one? What is this? I know it's the old or sick one. Broken leg, teeth are worn down, can't eat. What a lot of people don't realize is when an animal's, we can get false teeth. Animals can't. When the teeth are worn out, that's it.
Yeah.
So they start starving. And now, like I said, an elephant starving is a couple of months. It's when it's a South African couple, that means more than 2. So like 3 months.
Yeah.
Blessed buck, when their teeth are worn out, they can't eat. And they might be able to have a lamb or a kid but they won't be able to raise it.
Yep.
So then you firstly you've got carcasses everywhere because the babies died, the mothers died. So you just got to when things get past a certain stage, it's more humane to shoot them, hunt them, and put them back into the system, because this is a big engine, and that one blessed buck that you shot or 2 blessed buck that we shot are going to help another 5 or 10 blessed buck. So yeah, the myth that I would say is probably that hunters don't care.
I find that universally true. And I do believe that lots of people, whether they hunt or not, care about animals. What I will always maintain is that I don't know if I'll say that hunters care more, but they care in a different way because they've spent more time with those animals and understand them better. So if you hunt and I don't, and we both love blessbuck, and we want nothing but the best for them, but I don't spend any time around them. I don't understand how they move. I don't understand that they're protecting territory this time of year. I don't understand the herd dynamics of when they're in bachelor groups versus none of that. Then as a third party, I would look at the two of us and say, well, if they both care, but this guy knows a heck of a lot more about them, I'm going to put more weight on that, And I know that hunters care. I find that to be universally true. And like when we're talking about cougar hunting throughout the American West, there's lots of people that believe that cougars shouldn't be hunted at all. And that's fine that they believe that. I know where they're coming from in their hearts because they want what they think is best for the cougars. But the first people to show up and say, hey, we need to protect these cougars are the cougar hunters,
Yeah,
right?
exactly right.
Because they're the ones who are actually out there and notice, well, I'm not seeing as many tracks as I used to. I don't think the lion population's quite as healthy as what's being reported based off of these models. So I'm going to step up and say, yo, I think there's a problem and we need to back off a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going to be the cougar hunters who say that first. It's the same thing with any other species because they're the ones who are out there all the time.
Yeah.
They get it.
The better they do, the better we do.
Yep. Yeah.
That's the only way.
Another one that I think needs to be talked about is cost. There's still the idea that hunting in Africa is outrageously expensive, and that it's only for the extremely wealthy, and that simply isn't true. You can come here and you can hunt multiple species, and do so with less physical ability required than you can go do a guided elk hunt, and stay in the U.S. So I really want people to stop thinking that this is an unattainable thing and just look at it and start calling around and talking to different safaris and outfitters. Find the person that you would be willing to spend a week with.
Yeah.
And, if you can have a good conversation with them and you can enjoy their company, that's going to make a massive difference. If they care about things like food and lodging and hospitality, and they've got the wildlife and, they understand and have experience, you're going to have just an unforgettable, life-changing experience for less money than you will with something that is going to be a much lesser experience. So I want people to actually, keyboard it up, start making some phone calls and do a little bit of research, because this is attainable. This is reachable. And it's just something that I wish so many more people could experience because it's so wonderful.
No, absolutely. I've seen on the auctions in the trade shows that we go to that guys will pay. I think I saw a turkey going for a crazy price, like $5,000 or something. Mm. But if you look at an elk hunt, cost you $8,000.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah,
for a cow.
Yeah, and then you're not even guaranteed to get it.
Yeah.
For $8,000, you can fly here, you can hunt 4 species, and you're just about guaranteed to get them with putting in the hours. It's not shopping.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, you're going to get scratches and you're going to get frustrated, and you might not see this, or the weather might be blowing a bit or something like that. But you're going to take in a new culture. You're going to see how different people do it. We all do it slightly differently.
Yeah.
Because what works for me here might definitely not work for the way you guys do stuff here.
Yeah, and we don't have to worry about snakes and malaria here.
Yeah,
that's another thing.
Yeah,
we've
malaria free down. Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
No, so if you take that into consideration, to me it's a no-brainer. I saw prices for blesbuck and kudu and things like that to shoot them in the US. It was like 10 times more than it costs to come and do it here.
Yeah.
Your whole trip, I think a kudu was something ridiculous, like $10,000 plus.
Yeah.
For that, you can come and do 4, 5, 6 species, and that's your flight.
Yeah.
And your accommodation, yeah.
Yeah. And it's an awesome experience.
Yeah, and you come and have a beer with me in the sun.
Yeah, which we might be doing a little bit of later. Okay, well, thank you so much, Sean. We're going to continue doing the thing here, and at the end of this trip, we're going to get back on, and we're going to do part 2 of this, and we're going to talk story for a bit, and we're going to do a recap of this hunt, and then I just want to. I've heard a few of them. I know you have like this deep well of wild hunting stories. I'm so stoked to talk about all that. So thank you so much. And bye everybody. And we'll see you next week with some stories.
Thanks very much. It's lekker chatting to you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their busy lives to write a review for the show and share it with their friends. I'm extremely proud of how intelligent, engaged, and adventurous this audience is. Original music for the Six Ranch podcast is written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Harlander. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.